I met Jesse at what we used to call the barn. It has a different name now, but anyway, it was a cooperative type of thing that we all got together and did our painting and drawing and hiring of models and so forth. It was a lot of fun, but that was a long time ago. So here we are in 2021. We have to fast forward. A lot happened in between. Maybe I should backtrack a little bit about my earlier years before I came to Block Island, because I had a lot of years before I got here. I grew up in New Jersey and lived there until I guess the late 70s. And then my husband took a job in Texas. So that took me away from New Jersey for a while, 10 years. And that was good and not so good in a way. I mean, it was fine, really. I became a docent at the Amon Carter Museum in Fort Worth. And that was like having it was like being schooled, really. It was wonderful. I had put a lot of money into teaching docents down there in that particular museum. And then I did some also in the Museum of Modern Art down there too, which is now much bigger than it was when I was there. But I really value that 10 years. I learned a lot about art history and so forth. So that was great. And so we came back when my husband was going to retire. We came back east and decided on Block Island because it suited him and me. He had learned to fly when we were in Texas, which was a boyhood dream of his. And he had his own little plane and got a bigger one when we got back here. So he was able to enjoy that. And then we both liked sailing. And so Block Island just seemed like the right place for us to be. And here I am all these years. I've been here like 35 years now. I can hardly believe it. But anyway, it suited us to a T. Well, I always loved to draw as a child. I mean, I think that's the way most artists get started anyway. And it was a love that really never left me. And I still love to draw. I wish I could do more of it sometimes. It's nice to have models available. I did go to the Art Students League and to the National Academy of Design after I graduated from high school. When I was in school, grammar school and high school, I was always painting, not painting, but drawing, really. I never had paints until much later, but I did love all of that. And the teachers noticed that in me too. They did encourage me. After getting married, I had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and not much time for pursuing art for quite a while, unfortunately. It bothered me a lot because, you know, I just felt as my kids were growing that I was not fulfilling myself in a certain way. So I started going to, when my youngest was in nursery school a couple of days a week, I took it upon myself to take some classes at the Ridgewood Art Association in Ridgewood, New Jersey, because it was the town right next to where we were living. And so that got me off on portrait painting because that was always my big interest. And I learned a lot, but I was doing only oil painting at that time. I got to doing watercolors much later, but I'd still do both. And I think right now I'm probably doing a little bit more watercolors than oil painting. But that's just because of some of the series that I've been pursuing. I think, you know, I did a couple of series. Well, the first was a book called Island Adventure that a neighbor friend of mine out here wanted to do for children. And she asked me if I would illustrate it. So I, of course, said sure. So that was my really only real illustrating job. But it went over very well. We sold out our first numbers of books, and then she decided to do a second run, and it was very well received. So anyway, that was my entrance into illustrating in watercolor too. And then later on, one of my boys is just crazy about jazz. And so to make him happy, I painted in watercolor quite a few jazz musicians, famous ones, and put them all together into a booklet. And then I decided I really would like to do another series. A series grabs me for some reason. But anyway, I decided to do a series which is being made into a book right now, and it's about Block Island artists. They're all in the book when it gets out. I hope you'll get to see it. I won an award in 2012. It was put a competition that was sponsored by the Rhode Island State Council for the Arts. And normally I wouldn't have gone after that, but I thought this is supposed to be for the airport here on Block Island. And I know the island so well. So I thought, well, I'll enter this and make my theory about what you do on Block Island. People are always asking everybody out here, what do you do in the winter? You know, that kind of thing. So I decided, since we had 4 walls in the lobby, to do a freeze around. I would do summer, winter, spring, and fall, each on a wall. So of course, I did a lot of ice skating and ice boating in the freeze on the one wall, and then on the other wall, a lot of spring pictures with the flowers coming up and so forth. And then the south wall, I did swimmers, adults and children. And then the other wall was all about what we do in the fall, and what we mostly do here is birding. You know, they're a big presence on the island in October. All these birders come over. It's fun to see them. That was a big feather in my cap to get that commission. I mean, it really was. It paid nicely, which is always good. And, you know, it was fun to do, but it took me a year because there was a lot of walls to cover, and they wanted a maquette first. So I had to do it in a small version first, and that was even harder than the big one. The big one you could let go, but with the little one, it was, you know, quite time consuming and trying to make it small enough. Anyway, they selected it, so that was great. We had a nice little opening, and it's, I guess, what is it now, 12, 13, 14 years later, it's still up there and looking nice. And I'm very pleased with the way the whole thing shaped up. But I've always been influenced by John Singer Sargent because of my interest in portrait painting and figurative painting. And I love his watercolors. They're just lovely. And then I love Andrew Wild's work. I will always love his work. I never get tired of it. And then on top of that, I do like Fairfield Porter's work. All of these artists paint people in their own time and place. And that's what I mostly try to do. One of the series that I've done is people looking at art in museums, because I go to a lot of museums these days, have ever since I started getting serious about painting. I love to go to the museums, and I like to look at the people who go to the museums because they're sometimes quite colorful. So I didn't let them know I was photographing them. I was kind of slipping around behind the guards and whatever, and trying not to attract a lot of attention to myself so I could photograph these various people. And I really call it body language, because that's what I was trying after, just to get their stance, and they're immersing themselves in the work. So yes, I did, I think, something like 25, 26 images. I do think about Norman Rockwell because he figured into my life a little bit too. When I was just a kid, you know, my mother subscribed to the Saturday Evening Post, and I couldn't wait for those magazines to come to the house, and really enjoyed all of his um, oh, take on events of the day and the people in those events. Peter and I were selected to show our work at the Ocean House, which is really, really nice venue to set off your work. And we went over to have lunch there and see how it was hung. And it was hung beautifully, of course. And there were a couple of other artists that were invited into this also. I think they selected 4 of mine, and a couple of them were ocean scenes. Because I do landscape and ocean also. It's just that the figurative work is my favorite. And then, of course, I met Peter Gish. My husband passed away in 2005, and Peter was in Jesse's gallery showing some work at a still life show, and I was also invited into that show. So that's how I met Peter, and we just get along famously. We're very good companions, and you know, we talk art all the time. It's both his life and mine, so it's been good. So what can I say? Life is good.